Chapter 1, The Belly Inflation Incident. The year was 2020. I had just met a person named Brianna, and we became good friends very quickly. We started hanging out and talking to each other over Xbox calls because we didn't know each other in person. One day, she told me about someone called Roblox is dead, who had been making her uncomfortable. Being the caring and friendly person I am, I wanted to know what was wrong. When I asked, she said Roblox had asked her to do something called belly inflation. But what is belly inflation? Body inflation is the practice of inflating or pretending to inflate a part of one's body, often for sexual gratification. May I add that we were only 15 and 14 at the time. And he was 24. Brianna decided to play along to see where this would go. She told him she couldn't do it at the moment, wanting to test how far he would take things. Later, she revealed that Roblox, after being told she couldn't do it, suggested that someone else could do it. The only other person he could have been referring to at the time was Brianna's 5-year-old cousin. Chapter 2, Mass Invites and Threatening Messages. Roblox had never seen our faces or met us in real life since he lived in America, though so did my friend Brianna. Some time passed, and while I can't remember everything that happened in those days, I do recall Roblox saying things that made both of us uncomfortable. He often talked about how furries have genitalia and made inappropriate jokes about anthropomorphic characters in a sexual context. He always tried to brush it off as a joke, and if we were uncomfortable, he would apologize, only to do it again later. Eventually, my friend and I decided to block him, but Brianna chose not to so she could observe his behavior. I blocked him while she continued talking to him. Brianna and I communicated outside of Xbox using Snapchat. Roblox began manipulating my friend, trying to turn her hostile toward me. He also sent me threatening messages, demanding I unblock him. I told him I didn't want to talk to him anymore and tried to reason with him, but he wouldn't listen. He oscillated between begging and desperation, attempting to guilt-trip me by pretending to hyperventilate or cry. He also used a technique I call shock value, where he acted overly desperate or distressed to make me feel guilty. Despite his attempts, I stood my ground and refused to give in. My friend witnessed these events and supported my decision. When I told Roblox I didn't want to talk to him ever again, he spiraled into desperation, threatening lives and doing whatever he could to get his way, though his threats were empty. He invited his friends to mass invite me to parties and message me, pressuring me to unblock him. Sometimes, when I joined a party, I'd see his friends and him together, so I would leave immediately. Eventually, I joined a party with one of his friends, Technomooblet, after Roblox had left. I explained the situation to him, and he believed me. He even tried reasoning with Roblox, but it didn't work. One morning, I woke up to find my Xbox account banned. Roblox had repeatedly reported me, using false claims. This all stemmed from an incident where he claimed to have reported someone for unwanted sexual content due to a profile picture of two fictional characters. When I blocked him for being unreasonable, he escalated his behavior. Chapter 7, The Weird and Disturbing Behavior. Roblox continued making inappropriate jokes about animal genitalia, remaining fixated on anthropomorphic deities, demons, angels, and kitten. He once told a bizarre story about a kitten visiting him at night, kissing him, and turning his eyes gold for 5 seconds before disappearing. He spoke rapidly, and the story made little sense. His typing and speech were often nonsensical. Sometimes, he would stop mid-sentence and change topics abruptly, confusing everyone. These interactions left me disturbed and increasingly determined to distance myself from him. Chapter 8, Nonsensical and Confusing Behavior. Roblox frequently spoke in a rapid, frantic manner or extremely slowly, making it hard to follow him. He often interrupted himself, jumping from one topic to another with no connection. Whenever my friend and I were discussing something, he would interrupt, steering the conversation toward his own agenda. This constant derailment frustrated both of us. Chapter 9, Explanation. Initially, my plan was to block him, which I did. However, my friend didn't block him, leaving herself vulnerable. Concerned for her safety, I unblocked him to monitor their conversations. In games like Minecraft, Roblox displayed controlling behavior, connecting our houses with paths despite us moving far away. He always made games about earning money, whether it was mining sim or factory sim. When things didn't go his way, he resorted to guilt-tripping, manipulation, or intimidation. However, I never saw him as a real threat. His behavior was too absurd. Despite all this, his persistence in invading my space and being inappropriate made me want him gone for good.